Now I'm going to show you how to render corduroy. So I'm kind of going to do it a similar way to how I would do velvet, because it is that plush fabric. It has a pile, but then in the finishing stages of it, I'm just going to do a little bit different technique there. So starting with my lightest color, I'm going to do a sort of a darker green, and I'm going to lay out this color everywhere. So with this lightest color, I'm going to already sort of start laying in some of these shadows. I'm laying in the color in like the same direction that these folds are going. Add in those shadows. Now I'm going to use my shadow color, and I'm going to add in shadows in my darkest shadow areas. And I'm kind of, as I'm doing it, I'm kind of creating these lines to make it look like corduroy. So I'm already kind of defining that as I'm starting to lay the marker down. Okay, so now that I have my shadows down, I'm going to start adding in some highlights with my 10% French gray. I'm going to add them in that corduroy pattern. So look at your fabric and see what size wale you have. If you have a larger wale cord, then obviously these details are going to be a little bit larger. If you have a really tiny wale cord, then they're going to be a little bit smaller. I'm going to do it as a sort of a small, medium small wale. So these little details are going to be kind of close together. So in my highlight areas, I'm going to start adding in So I'm adding in little lines to give that cord texture. I'm just adding it a little bit into these shadow areas, just a tiny bit, so it sort of like bleeds into the shadows. Now that I have those highlights down, I'm going to use a darker colored pencil. I'm going to use a darker green in this one. You can also use a black colored pencil, but I'm using a darker green. And you're going to lay that down in the shadow areas. So both the shadows and the highlights are going to get this texture. Now that I'm done with that, I'm going to go in with an even darker, I feel like my shadows aren't dark enough, so I'm going to add a darker shadow with a warm gray. So this is a W7 warm gray. And I'm going to just define some of these shadows just a little bit more. And that is Corduroy.